Welcome back, or if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Hannah and I live in Los Angeles with my husband Alex and our dog Kaboom. If you missed my most recent video, the three of us, myself, Alex, and Kaboom, spent the night in a tent in our living room. So we camped in our living room for the night and we survived. We made it through the night. That was essentially a dress rehearsal in preparation of us going camping for the very first time. We are not going to be taking Kaboom with us. He is going to his own camp, so Alex just dropped him off. We just sort of felt our first night for actual camping, of sleeping in a tent outside in nature, that we would just have it be the two of us, so that it would just be one less aspect that might complicate the process. Even though I did mention Kaboom did the best out of the three of us sleeping in the tent. He was the MVP camper of living room camping, but he is now at his camp with his friends, so he will not be coming with us on our first official camping trip. We're just doing a single night and we are staying very local because we will be camping in Malibu. And then we also aren't going full wilderness. We are going to be camping at Surf Outpost. It's also called Malibu RV Park, and it's a campground in Malibu that's an RV park. So if you have an RV, a trailer, you can stay there, and people stay there for weeks on end. Like, they have a laundry room there in addition to bathrooms, and then they also have a general store, and they have bathrooms and showers. Like, they're fully equipped, so you could stay there for an extended period of time if you wanted. So they have sites for RVs. They also have sites for rooftop tents if you have one of those tents that goes on top of a vehicle. So they have an area for the rooftop tents, and then they have a site for tent camping. So we are going to be tent camping there for a single night. It is a pretty luxe RV park from what I can tell. I think just based on the location alone, the fact that it's in Malibu, it is right across PCH from the Pacific Ocean, so you have an ocean view. And we did pay an additional, I think it was $15 to have a tent site with an ocean view. So you can opt to get a tent site that has no view, and that is the least expensive option that they have on their entire property. And then the second least expensive option is the tent site with the ocean view. I have zero familiarity of like what the going rates are. Obviously there, I think, are always free options out there, but then there are ones that are probably like really affordable, but then also don't necessarily have any amenities. So this site, I don't know really how it stacks up against other campgrounds, but it has bathrooms with showers, and I believe there might be like a separate sink area to wash your dishes. Every tent site comes with a picnic table, and there is then the general store. The whole reason that we are staying close to home and camping in Malibu is that we will be right near civilization, very close to places to get food. So we are not going to end up cooking this first camping trip. So we are not going to be preparing any food for this trip. We will get takeaway this evening for dinner, and then we will either go get takeaway for breakfast and have it at our campsite, or we might pack up and head out and opt for a brunch instead of a breakfast. It's still pretty early in the afternoon. It's not even quite 1:30, but check-in does begin at 2 p.m. So we are certainly not going to be getting there right at 2 p.m. I don't think that we are going to plan to do anything before check-in, so I think we're just going to head straight there and check in, then set up our campsite. I don't think that we're going to end up going for a hike or doing anything else in Malibu, so I don't think we need to get there at 2 or that early, but also at the same time I do worry about traffic, and we still have to pack up our gear and load it into the car. I'm coming to you from the living room where we camped overnight in a tent. I showed you sort of our sleeping setup, and we are going to bring the rest of the gear that we have, but we again are not going to plan to cook anything, so we're just going to take it like very easy this first go around and just sort of focus on setting up our tent, which I think will be slightly easier this time around because I won't be beginning to set it up on my own, which was my choice, but then I realized that I really needed a second person, and it also was very tricky. Obviously we had limited space. There was also the ceiling fan factor, so we were dealing with not only a ceiling but a ceiling fan. We'll be outside, so we'll have a lot more room, so the only thing will be that we will have to put in the stakes into the ground, which we obviously didn't do in our living room, so that will just be the only thing that we don't have experience doing at this point. Ultimately, it hasn't even been a full week since we camped in our living room, so this all feels very fast because it sort of is. We very last minute impulsively decided to camp in our living room, and then now in terms of schedules and availability, it just sort of made sense. We needed a couple of days to be able to go, so it just sort of made sense to go camping now. So I haven't even reviewed any of the footage that I took from when we camped in the living room. So like I have not looked at any of the footage. I haven't listened to myself talk about the living room camping setup. Not only have I not reviewed any of the footage, but I certainly haven't edited the video together. So I have no idea what I've said. So I am coming to you not having put together the first camping video. So this feels very fast, a little rushed, but then also it's making me anxious that I don't even have like the first video edited. So I apologize if this just feels like very spotty in terms of me leaving out certain things and not giving you all the information, so you're like not completely keyed into what's going on. I mean, frankly, I don't feel completely keyed into what's going on. I think physically we seem pretty prepared. We have our gear, and we decided that we needed additional sleeping pads and pillows, and they arrived in time. Check-in is now like a half hour away, and we haven't loaded up the car. Obviously we're not going to get there right at 2, and at this point I don't know how much longer it's going to take for us to do everything, but I obviously wanted to sit down and tell you what is going on. So we are going camping not even a full week after we camped in our living room for the very first time, in preparation of camping for the very first time. And so Kaboom is not joining. He is at camp. He's very excited. He loves it there. It's just going to be myself and Alex. We are going to Surf Outpost in Malibu, and we are going to be tent camping with an ocean view. So hopefully I will will be able to take as much footage as I can. Admittedly, I'm a little concerned that the experience is going to be so overwhelming that I just will not be taking a lot of footage and picking up the camera. So I am a little concerned that it's just going to be a lot this first time out camping, but we're staying close to home. We are going to be not in the complete wilderness, so we are going to be somewhere that is very close to food sources. So it is very much camping with training wheels. Like, we're not just going 0 to 60, but this will be our first time camping outside, our first time camping somewhere that's not our home. And so that to me is a really big deal. Again, we're just trying to not overdo it and get too extreme. Camping with training wheels, we're not only going to, from what I can tell, like a fairly luxe campground, but we also are not going to be overcomplicating the experience by then having to worry about cooking our food. And we also won't have Kaboom with us. I feel like that's probably best this first time out, to just make things as simple as possible, beginner friendly, ease into it, not do anything that's just going to be a bit too extreme and put us off the experience going forward. So the whole idea is for this to be as enjoyable as possible. And so I'm just trying to set us up for success, have a successful first time out, so that we want to do this again and we want to continue to use our gear and make all of this worth it. Obviously, if we don't enjoy it, it is what it is, but this is something that I think that we potentially not only could really enjoy, but just end up getting really into. This is the first time. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, we have to pack up all of our stuff and load up the car and then drive to Malibu. So yeah, come along with us as we go camping for the very first time in Malibu. So here we are setting up the tent. Because we didn't have to worry about the tent stakes during our dress rehearsal, we didn't think about getting a mallet to help us get the stakes into the ground. So Alex here just got a rock, which he pointed out was man's first hammer. And the rock worked great, but I have since purchased a mallet to add to our camping gear. And it has a hook at the end of the handle to help you get the stakes out of the ground as well. From what we could tell looking around in regards to our fellow campers, it did not look like it was anyone else's first rodeo. It looked like everyone else was fairly experienced, but I think our dress rehearsal really made it so that we knew what we were doing for the most part, or at least it looked like we did, I think. Everyone else had more gear than us, especially things like picnic tablecloths and tent doormats, which admittedly had never occurred to me. So it was very helpful to see what other people had and to be able to take notes. Admittedly, I initially was taken aback by how close we were to the other tent sites. We had no one directly behind us, but we did have groups on either side of us. So our tent site was bookended by two other tent sites. So we had a group on our left and a group on our right. However, once we got set up, we realized that everyone was very much in their own little bubbles. So you really didn't feel like you were on top of one another. You didn't feel like you were too close. However, because we were fairly close to the other sites, I did want to be respectful and not film our neighbors. So I therefore couldn't really show you a more zoomed out perspective of our tent site or give you a 360-degree view. I will pop up a map of the Surf Outpost property to show you how the property is laid out and where our tent site was in relation to the rest of the property. The tent in the background of the shot here to the right is one of the no view tents. And then our direct neighbors, if you're facing the ocean, they were on our left. They were setting up their tent pretty much at the same time that we were setting up ours. So you can see a bit of their tent, which is sort of in the middle ground of the shot. And then in the background on the left side of the shot, we have a wheelbarrow with all of our gear. And so Surf Outpost does provide wheelbarrows, which is a really nice touch, and they are located right next to the parking lot. So once you've parked your car, you can just grab a wheelbarrow and load up the wheelbarrow with all of your stuff and then wheel it over to your tent site. So you don't have to lug all of your stuff over to your site, and you also don't have to worry about bringing a wagon with you. But it was very nice having the wheelbarrow, and we were able to fit all of our stuff in it. So we only had to take that one trip. We realized that we had the tent facing the wrong way. So here we are moving the tent 180 degrees in order to have the front door facing the ocean. So the front door is the one that has the brow pole above it. And so now I will know to look for the clips that attach to the brow pole when we take the tent out of the bag, so that we're not starting to set it up and then having to do what we did just here. Although thankfully it was not an issue, but just moving forward, we'll know how to orient the tent. Also, because the tent site was not as private as our living room, I did not feel comfortable talking to camera at any point like I did for our dry run. So I thought I would just come in via voiceover to check in with you. But now that we have pitched our tent, we are going to head into a second and final vibey video, which will show the remainder of our stay at Surf Outpost. And then I will return at the end of this video to give you a closing summary of our stay. So we are now back from our first official night camping. Alex and I truly had the best time. We just absolutely love Surf Outpost. The location is incredible. One thing I did forget to mention at the beginning of this video is that they do not allow dogs for tent camping. You are allowed to have up to 3 dogs if you're in an RV, but if you are tent camping, they have a no dogs policy for the tent site. Unfortunately, if and when we return to Surf Outpost, which I do think that we are going to return at some point because we truly did have the best time, but unfortunately we will not be able to bring Kaboom with us. So I will show you the map of the property again, because when we first checked in and saw where our tent site was located, we were on the side of a bluff, and it initially looked like we were not going to have the best view. It sort of looked like we were gonna have like a partial ocean view. However, once we arrived at the actual site and saw our view, we were so happy with the view and our location. It doesn't look like you're gonna have that great of a view just based off the map, but we thought we had a truly fantastic view. So we were really happy with the site that we had. I will say that the bathroom definitely was not as nice as I was expecting it to be. I certainly did not think it was going to be as nice as the bathrooms in Ojai at Caravan Outpost, but I did think that they were going to be slightly nicer than what they were. I imagine they're sort of pretty standard public campground bathrooms, so I was expecting, because of the price, because of the location, because of the Surf Outpost branding, I was sort of expecting something a little nicer. For our first trip, we just wanted to focus on camping, so we did not end up going on a hike, and we did not bring our beach gear and go to the beach. We just wanted to focus on camping. However, there is a hike that's accessible directly from the property, but it is a hike that we've done before. And I realized this before we arrived, but we did the hike with my mom. I think it's a few years ago now, when she was in town one time visiting, and it was myself, Alex, and my mom, and I hadn't read any of the reviews for the hike. I just saw the location and saw that it was a loop with ocean views in Malibu, and I was like, say no more. So it turned out that the trail was incredibly overgrown. And because we didn't know this, it was summertime, we were wearing shorts, we had skin exposed, and we just got completely cut up on the trail. We needed a machete and we were not prepared. It was pretty bad. I made sure to go onto all trails before we left to go to Surf Outpost and just check to see if anything was different in terms of it still being overgrown, and people were saying it is overgrown. So nothing has changed, it's still very overgrown, so we opted to pass on the hike. But it's really nice that you have an option of doing a hike without having to get in your vehicle and drive to a separate location just to do a hike. So you can do a hike straight from Surf Outpost. Just know that you're gonna need to wear pants because it's very overgrown. So the general store, which is where you check in, is very nice. It's sort of like an upscale bodega, and we learned when we went to check in that they do complimentary coffee between 7 and 9 a.m., which I did not know about. So that was a lovely surprise. We very much took advantage of that. So that was really nice to be able to have complimentary coffee in the morning, and that is ultimately what when we realized that we had forgotten our little camping table. We sort of have a side table that's meant to go in between our camping chairs, and we realized that we had forgotten it because it's stored separately from the rest of our camping gear. We were fine without it, but it would have been nice to have, but thankfully it was the only thing that we forgot to bring with us. And I'm pleased to report that the extra sleeping pad and pillow that I ordered for both myself and Alex after our dress rehearsal, they were fantastic. Like, they were just what we needed. And Alex ended up having a great night's sleep, like significantly better than how his night of sleep was during our dry run in our living room. I had pretty much the same night's sleep. So, you know, I had no problem going to sleep, but then I just sort of like woke up at one point, but thankfully was able to go back to bed. But yeah, I just didn't feel the most well rested when I woke up, but it wasn't that bad. We are definitely going to attempt to cook our next time camping. And also, I think we might try to do more than a single night, because from what we could tell, everyone around us was going to be there for at least another night. So I think that we were the only ones who were just going to be doing a single night. And it does make sense because of how much time and effort it takes to set up and then break down and pack up, that it would be nice to have at least one day in between setting up your campsite and then packing everything up. But I'm really glad that we just started with a single night. So we're very happy that we just did one night to start, but we do think that we might do more than one night in the future, and that we definitely are going to attempt to cook. Time flew by. I couldn't believe how quickly things went. It just went by so fast, which is all that you could want. So we just really had the best time. Also, I want to mention that we really benefited from having a brightly colored tent. So even though orange is definitely not a neutral, it made it very easy to spot. So I loved our little orange tent. It definitely was a lot smaller than all of our neighbors' tents. Like, pretty much everyone around us had much larger tents, and like tents that you could stand up in. And ours is super tiny and cozy. And actually, I completely forgot to string the lights on the tent poles. I forgot that I was going to try to string the lights on the tent poles before putting the rain fly on, but I was able to string it through the single overhead loop in the tent, and that ended up working out great. And especially when it got dark out, it was really easy to spot our little orange tent, and it was just sort of glowing because of the string light. So it made the tent even cozier, and yeah, the color made it so that our tent was really easy to spot, so that worked out great. So all in all, we truly had the best time. It's a bummer that Kaboom won't be able to experience Surf Outpost, but we really loved our stay. I think I covered everything. Hopefully I didn't forget anything, but thank you so much for coming along with me on this adventure for my first night of official camping. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.